Resume our session.
好，那我们可以把音乐关掉吗
？Please turn off the music.
我用中文，然后完了跟他们用英文，跟线上的几位去用英文。就说您有没有戴耳机？耳机这边有。然后您是陈教授、陈主任对吧？然后是那个，我就会按照这个上面的顺序往下走。然后那个，我用英文做的，对，我用中文。用中文，用中文没问题，最好用中文，因为现场大家还是要听中文。好，那我们。
Okay, now let's start the first breakout session. At this topic, at this session, we are going to talk about some technical topics and public policies and future development. So we are going to talk about technology, innovation, and what kind of opportunities technology can bring. The Economist magazine had an article about the changes in the energy sector. So we are switching from the fossil fuel to renewable energy, and I think this is a very good example. So, however, transformation is going to take time. Transformation also brings about a lot of changes. In the past year, global warming has become more serious. So yesterday or the day before yesterday, there was a typhoon in Shenzhen city. Typhoons have become more frequent in China, which also lead to a lot of problems. So we have to transform to new energies and renewable energies. But if you look at the economics, whether it is economical to use renewable energy. So we need to rely on innovation in the private sector and need to have more technical advances so that we can have better outcome. I would like to introduce at this session, we have the online and offline participants. We have two panelists who are physically here. Mr. Peng, Deputy Director of National Ocean Technology Center from the Ministry of Natural Resources, and Chen Daoyi, Director of Marine Technology Research Center from Tsinghua University.
Laurent Albert, CEO and CTO of Seabased. Henry Jeffrey, Chairman Ocean Energy Systems, University of Edinburgh, as well as Philipp Sinn, Founder and CEO, Sinn Power Germany. 所以说线上线下想把一个
So we have online and offline panelists. It's not easy to organize such session. So we will direct the first question to Mr. Peng from the Ministry of Natural Resources to give us an overview of the coming years and what's the future for the marine energies, what input do we need to make, and what about the policies and environments for the marine industry. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to share with you the marine new energy and the renewable marine energy. I would like to talk about my personal viewpoints as well. The moderator has asked a few very good questions. So the Ministry of Natural Resources provides technical support to the marine economy and development. Over the past years, we have been working on different initiatives. Today, we are organizing this meeting. We have some overseas panelists as well. And first of all, let's look at what is marine renewable energy, what is marine new energies. Marine energies include wave energy, tidal energy, and temperature difference energy and salt difference energy and biomass mass energy and absorbing energy. Personally, I am very optimistic about the development of marine new energies and marine renewable energies. First of all, there's a huge reserve of marine energy. According to IEA statistics, in 2018, globally, the marine renewable energy, not including wind energy, the energy reserve accounts for 83 trillion kilowatt. It is equivalent to 16 times of what China can produce for a whole year's electricity. So in China, offshore renewable energy in China, not including wind energy, 20 kilometers offshore is about 6.7 trillion kilowatt hour. It's about the size of 33 gorgeous projects, including the in terms of the size of the reserve of marine renewable energy. I think the potential is tremendous. If we look at the demand for marine energies, China is a big country in terms of marine energies because we have more than 18,000 kilometers of coastlines. We have a survey in 2017. There are about more than 10,000 small islands in China. So on these small islands, about 801 islands have power supply. More than 90% of the islands do not have power supply. So the development of the marine energy is mostly located in some coastal areas. So 70% of the Chinese cities are concentrated in those areas. 50% of the population and 60% of the GDP are concentrated in coastal areas. So that is why we need to resolve the challenge of power supply, energy supply. So when we talk about the energy safety, we have to take care of the coastal areas.
To develop the energy in the oceans, it's very important for us to meet the growing demand of our residents in the coastal areas. In particular, in the remote islands, we can meet their demands. From the international background and landscape, in order to cope with climate change and reduce carbon emission, for green development, this has become the consensus for the international community. This issue is pressing and urgent because the rapid climate change and the carbon emission has become the global concern. On 22nd of September, the UN General Debate, our president also made important remarks when he mentioned that the Chinese government will be brave enough and be responsible to reach the carbon emission peak. And by 2060, China will achieve the carbon neutral. This is a solemn pledge to the whole world. To achieve these targets and build the ecological civilization, we must ramp up our efforts to produce renewable energy. Therefore, the energy from the ocean will be a very important part in our solution. We must abide by the international laws and honor our commitments to the international community. So I think in the future, I'm optimistic about the potential. But the offshore energy is a new sector. To boost its development, I have the following suggestions. First of all, we must step up the guideline for the exploration of offshore energy. Especially now we are entering the 14th five-year plan, we must adopt a new guideline so that from the long-term perspective, we can have the guidance. We must understand our ultimate target and approaches to achieve that target. This is the first thing and a priority for us. We must put the wisdom and the strength from all walks of life. And the second, we must also formulate and improve the policies to boost the development of offshore energy, including the offshore wind power tariff. And as for tidal power and the tide stream and other types of offshore energy, currently we haven't formulated the tariff policies. And we must also finalize the subsidy for the electricity. We must have the concerted efforts from the whole society so that we'll have the incentive to move forward. And the next part is that we must move on to the innovation part. Innovation is the relentless driving force for us to move forward. Therefore, in order to get edge, we must step up our efforts to work on innovation, especially the innovation can be applied in the offshore energy exploration. So I have a question, follow-up question. So to achieve the target of carbon neutral by 2060, so what kind of proportion we must achieve in the total consumption for electricity from the renewable energy? So is there any best practice that you can share with us in boosting innovation? According to the estimates, in order to achieve the target by 2060, first of all, we must estimate the total consumption of electricity. And the second, to achieve the carbon neutral, we must make the adjustment of our power structure, because new energy, including the offshore energy and also the continental wind power, biomass, etc., another type of energy. Therefore, we need to make a calculation of the proportion of different types of energy in our energy mix. According to my understanding, in EU, they formulated their guideline by 2050, mentioning the proportion of the offshore energy in the total mix, 10% by 2050. But China's target is that by 2060 we will reach the carbon neutral. Then will China also reach the target of 10%, which means that the offshore energy will account for 10% of the total energy mix. So we must have a detailed calculation. You may refer to the experience in EU. So just now you mentioned target is important. Now I understand. So do you have any best practice in terms of the policy formulation? Maybe I would like to direct this question to Professor Chen. He will be more familiar with this question. As for the offshore wind power, actually it started at a quite early stage. It's quite mature. Since 2017, the wind power has changed the tariff policies. Currently, the tariff rate has been adjusted to 0.8 yuan, reduced a little bit. And the ceiling price is 2.58 yuan per kilowatt. So we have set a base benchmark. As for the tidal energy, currently we can make the profits from it. However, this can also be decided by the scale of the application and the capacity. Our experts once estimated that if the tidal energy can reach 50 gigawatt, then the cost will be reduced a lot. Then the cost of developing tidal energy may be similar to that of the wind power exploration. So if the tariff can be ranging between 0.8 yuan and 1.4 yuan, then we may strike the balance. So if we can scale up the application and the capacity, then the cost will be reduced a little bit, or even more. So Professor Chen, what's your view on the policies or the technology developments in the offshore energy exploration? So I have a PPT. Just now, Director Peng has already introduced the development situation of the offshore energy, including the wind power and the tidal power tide stream. So we have a diversified energy. However, it is also scattered. From the technological perspective, we must overcome a lot of difficulties. We must advance technologies and also improve the supply chain. The whole supply chain must be upgraded so that we can promote the exploration of the renewable energy before it can be commercialized. So no matter we are in the commercialization or the early phase, subsidy is a temporary solution. Compared with the firepower energy, if we can reach that scale, of course we can be sustainable. However, for the offshore energy, in my view, just like Peng mentioned, that as for the wave power, tide power, or the temperature difference power, it covers a lot of areas, and we also have a lot of islands which are in great demand of energy. Because the islands need the energy. If we transfer the electricity from the land, then the cost will be much higher compared with the energy that we can use from the sea. As for the renewable energy, we may be successful in two areas, photovoltaic as well as wind power. As for the wind power exploitation, it is out of our industry's expectation. If we can review what happened 5 years ago, for example, in 2014 or 2015, globally, the offshore wind power the depth is 10 meters to 50 meters of the water. Then in this range, we can install the fixed turbine. So in this form, in 2014, the cost is 1.2 yuan per kilowatt, while the cost for the coal-fired electricity, it is 0.4 yuan. So you can see the gap. But in the past 1 decade, because of the tariff readjustment, we can see the gap has been smaller. Especially in Europe, you can see that the price is reduced to 0.3 per kilowatt. It's similar to the cost of the electricity powered by the coal. So, because this gap has been smaller, almost the same, then this energy can be commercialized. Moreover, we can also improve the technology or equipment for gas or oil. Now, these equipment can be applied in exploiting offshore wind power. So this is an advancement. But however, we may wonder how we can scale up. And just now I've also mentioned that now we just installed the fixed equipment in the water at the depth of 10 meters to 5 meters. Then what about the range that is above 50 meters? We may use the floating turbine. So this is the example that I would like to share. So what's the potential for the floating turbine application? This is a critical problem in exploiting offshore wind power. Of course, we need the guidance or support from the government. This is the core. How far we still need to go before commercialization? What do we need to do in the future in order to promote commercialization? So now I've given you the case that the price has been reduced such a big gap within only 10 years. So we need to work out the solution to reduce the tariff gap before we can commercialize this type of energy. So in the academia circle, some predict that the floating turbine can be scaled up in a shorter time compared with the fixed turbine. In my view, this is an optimistic prediction because they predict that 5 to 7 years may see the commercialization of the floating turbines. But I think it's a bit too optimistic. In terms of the future development, I think in the following areas we may speed up our efforts. First of all, globally, including China, the offshore wind power development has seen rapid development. Why? Because offshore wind power has its strength and advantages. It occupies no land resource.
Offshore wind energy, although the cost is high, but however, the time that can be used for power generation is two times that of the land power generation. In Europe, there were some cases. Technology-wise, if we look at the power generation of some wind energy power sets, starting from 3 megawatts, 5 megawatts, but now the capacity has improved, and also in the beginning we only have some small wind farms, but now we have some large wind farms. So scale doesn't matter. So the Chinese government also have some policies and measures to promote the wind energy. A few years back, Guangdong province was lagging behind in the offshore wind energy. But however, recently, Guangdong province has large tract of area reserved for offshore wind energy. So we see that Guangzhou is very promising in terms of offshore wind energy. So there are other developments as well. So the size and the scale of offshore wind energy have expanded. If you look at the size of the sector, now there are fixed platforms and floating operations, and there are different platforms as you can see from the photos. And also this sector also learn from other marine energy sector as well and use their experience. And wind installations expanded. And also, if you want to have some higher speed, and you also need to make some improvements. If you want to have 12 megabyte or even 20 megabyte, and then you need to have higher efficiency, stronger turbines in terms of output. And then the AC method is not economical enough, so that is why DC is also used, and so that is why there's the flexible technologies that can make things more cost-effective. Large energy storage has improved as well. In the future, we may be able to resolve many problems related to wind energy. Offshore wind energy can be handled differently, and then we can generate some hydrogen energy, and then you will not be limited because you do not have to transfer the electric power, because now that we have new methods of using and handling wind energy. For example, in the Pacific Ocean, in the North Pacific Ocean, there's an abundance of wind energy. Well, mainly we use the wind energy to generate hydrogen. Hydrogen energy is very important in China as well. So there's application of hydrogen energy as well. For example, natural gas installations and transportation. Maybe we can make some adjustments, and then we can utilize the hydrogen energy. Hydrogen energy and the lithium battery are two areas we can look at. It's hard to say which sector will win, but I think that hydrogen energy is more environmentally friendly compared with lithium battery, because it's easier to dispose or handle hydrogen energy. To achieve progress, we need to tap into marine renewables and wind energy. We have to do the experiments offshore. So in some foreign countries, they build some offshore laboratories. Fuji University also built a laboratory in some offshore farms. And in the Weihai Ocean, there are also some laboratories as well, because we want to do offshore testing and build offshore laboratories. And our ocean team can contribute to the overall economy. I would like to ask two questions. First of all, floating wind energy compared with the fixed wind energy, is it because that you can capture more energy with floating wind energy? Or what's the difference between the floating wind energy and fixed wind energy? For example, 50 meters within the coast, if you can build your structure, and also, I think it's going to take 3 to 5 years for us to lower the electricity price to about 40 cents. But however, for some large area of ocean, you can use floating or semi-submarine type or the 3-leg type, and then the cost may be higher. But in the longer run, the installation is simpler, easier. You can build it on shore, and then you drag it to the location you want offshore. So installation can account for 1/3 of the cost. But if you have better more efficient installation, you can save the cost. And oil and gas technologies can be used on offshore floating as well. What kind of technologies can be utilized? So, of course, you can innovate and build new technologies, but if you can use some existing technologies, that is good. Well, for floating type, actually, if we look at the offshore oil drilling, what we can use for the wind energy installation technologies are very similar. Well, what about ocean shipping? Will wind energy have an impact on ocean shipping? I don't think it will be a big problem because if you do the planning well, I don't think wind energy will compromise ocean shipping.
Three speakers online. I first want to invite Mr. Laurent Albert, CEO and CTO of Seabased. So I think we've had a lot of discussion already on whether the new technology, especially wave and tidal technology, would make economic sense. So I think that's kind of one of the key questions we have to ask before we say the ocean provides a lot of new opportunities for us to unearth the potential of sustainable new energy. So I think the question, of course, is that does the technology problems and high-cost issues involved in the development of offshore wind energy and marine renewable energy, would that be one of the major challenges for you to roll out to increase the potential of the sustainable renewable energy? So, Mr. Albert, you have 10 minutes.
Can you hear me at all? So, I think you hear me, I say good afternoon to you and thank you for the intervention before. I do agree that the marine potential and it is needed on our progress in the way forward to carbon neutrality.
I can see everything. I can see everything, and I can see myself. I even see my colleague now, who's.
And I would like also to share one perspective which is different and seen from the marine energies, and explain how the role of marine energies is well underestimated and should be a lot more of the share that you're considering. So if you go to the next slide. Maybe next, please. Yes, thank you. So Seabased is providing modular wave parks, which are already cost competitive, and it is a lot more predictable because we've recorded waves since decades now. Some of the wave data we are using are 100 years old, and we have tremendous experience in this. Next, please. The paradigm we are in is not so much as how to find the cheapest way to produce energy. What you need to look at is we're moving from a world where we're using fossil fuel, and fossil fuel is something that we control. We can set and decide to the level of production of fossil fuel. By moving to renewables, what we're doing is giving this control to Mother Nature. Nature decides when wind blows. Nature decides when there is sun. Nature decides when there's waves. So if we want to maintain the way we use power, there is actually two major avenues. My predecessor here described one, which is we need storage. We would need batteries, we would need hydrogen, and probably a few other solutions that we haven't got right now that's going to appear in the next few years. There is also another avenue, which is to recognize that all these resources, and I'm not talking about the technologies here, but the resources themselves, wind, sun, wave, do not produce at the same time. So there is the path to say, let's be smarter. Let's associate technologies. Let's make hybrid plants. Wave and wind is one example. And this should give us power that is more stable, power that is easier to integrate in grids. And for this, yes, you need a lot more than 10% of marine energy. But playing on these differences in time to production is what is important. So let me show you the example, and if you could switch to slide 4, please. So slide 4 shows the advantages. Hang on, slide 4. Can you please switch to slide 4, please? Next one. Yes. So if you consider producing from wave and wind, let's say, you will have more steady hourly production. With your base load, your average production is going to increase. The seasonal variations do not follow the same pattern either. If you have winds more in the winter, a little less in the summer, well, you may find that in your area you're considering the waves are following a different path, and therefore we compensate for each other. The higher base load is the peak. What energy are you producing with your energy park at all times? And this will make it more absorbable. So it would seem far away from the considerations of the cost per kilowatt hour. In fact, it is not. If you have 5, 6, 7, 10% of renewable energy, you can say, okay, this renewable energy is absolute priority on my power grid. If you reach higher numbers, this is no longer possible. You will have to provide energy when it is needed by the consumers. And for that, you need to make sure that at all times, your average production is much higher than what is achieved right now. It's not a technology issue. It's not a price issue. It's a matter of simply being smart on the way you plan your energy. I'll give you one example, which is in Galway, West Ireland, facing the Atlantic. You go to the next slide, please. At this position, when you install a wave park, and I'm only showing here the 2 first weeks of April, but I could show the year, but it's not as the illustration would get complicated. You can see that the production is quite variable, although not a lot, and the base load is quite significant. If you can push next. So the base load that is produced, let's say with 20 megawatt average capacity for the sake of the example with wave, you would have a base load of 8 megawatts, which is pretty good, but still not sufficient. Now you consider you do the same project, but you put wind turbines. Next slide, please. Are you on the next one? Slide 6. I'm sorry I cannot see the slide, but I assume you will be on the slide 6, which is showing at the same location with the same installed capacity the variability that is implied when you use wind. And you will see that the wind itself, it can produce also a base load in this location, but it's only 3 megawatts. My point here is not to compare both technologies, is to see, and that's illustrated on slide 7, which is important. Can you make sure that the slide 7 is on? Thank you. Then you can see, if you superpose the two curves, that wave and wind do not produce at the same time. Therefore, why not combine them and see what it changes if you go to slide 8. So you see that on the first occasion we had 8 megawatt base loads and the wind would provide 3, so we should have 11. When we combine, we find out that we've got 15 megawatt of this base load, which is significantly better. And even better if you look at the first. Oh, you need to change to the next slide, please. Yes, thank you. That is the combined. So you see that your base load is increasing, and also that by adding a very little battery on the beginning of the month, around the 2nd of April, by shifting the production, you will easily reach 20 megawatt. Means that at this location, by adding simply some wave to the wind as your primary resource, then you suddenly have half of your production that is base load. And that is way better than anything I've seen elsewhere. This path can ensure that we can have a lot more penetration on the power grids with renewable energy. So simply playing and being smart with your mix of energies, we can actually achieve a lot more than you think. That is why all sources are important. Yes, technologies will have different prices. The sources will make it possible to be put on the grids. That was the message I wanted to Philipp. Thank you for listening.
Thanks a lot. I have one follow-up question. So in terms of the cost calculation, if you have the wave and wind being combined, so do you have any savings in terms of both construction cost and deployment cost?
For example, the marine substation, if you consider fixed or floating winds to be associated with wave, the substation itself before the export to the shore can be absolutely common. We're working at Seabased, for example. All our electrical system is being modified to be able to deliver DC current in 33 kilovolts, which is compatible with most wind parks. And therefore we can directly plug into the wind substation and therefore save on assets. Installation costs and maintenance costs can also be economized in order to reduce the cost. So overall, you get a lot better quality power and reproduce when it is needed. And therefore you ensure that the takeoff is efficient, plus you will make some savings. It has multiple advantages.
Okay. I'll then invite the second speaker, Mr. Philipp Sinn, founder and CEO of Sinn Power. I think since we are on the wave power, we just want to know whether the technologies that companies like Sinn Power are now making possible, the scaled-up harvesting of ocean energy resources, more cost-efficient to compete with other low-carbon technologies.
Okay. Hello together to Chen and Chen. Thank you really much for this introduction. I hope you can hear me over there because we have some problems with the internet connection. Can you see me?
Yeah, we can hear you clearly.
Okay. Do you see? Can you turn my screen on the Philipp thing? I shared my presentation. Can you see that? Can you?
Yeah, we can see you, but there are some echoes. We can see the presentation now. Yeah.
Sorry about this. So, I would like to share my screen. And I can share my screen on Philipp Sinn. Can you see that? No.
Now we can see that. You just go ahead. We can see the first slide.
You can see my screen?
Yeah, we can see that. Just go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry for this interruption. I'm a few thousand kilometers away. Okay. Nevertheless, I start on. Thank you really much again being here. I'm excited about to hear what is going on in China. In Europe, we are the same, eager to get to know what is happening in this nice country, China, as you will be eager to learn what we are doing here in Europe. And I really hope that we're getting together and work together on innovation. This is a field we are talking about, ocean energy, which is quite quite exciting. It's a new field. We have heard from the audience before that this is a future technology which will arise soon, and I totally agree on my previous speakers that I'm fully convinced that this kind of technology will change the world and change the way of working. So what you see is on this picture is on the top side is some pictures from our location in Crete. We are from Munich. We don't have the ocean where I live. We are a little bit away from the ocean, but we have some offices in Crete where we do our testing. And on the left side, you see some wave power plants, wind power, and our recent launched ocean hybrid power. And on the bottom, you see some power electronics. I will tell you more about that. So I won't share this video with you now because it will. I think it will be too difficult. It's an image video. You can find that on our website. But nevertheless, Sinn Power was founded in 2014. We are more or less a research company. Our location is in Munich, Germany, and in Crete, Heraklion. We are quite strongly, it's out of research and development from the university, the company, and we are strongly funded by industry and by German and European governments. So we started off with wave power. This is an interesting topic. It's not yet developed solution technology. There are quite some keen teams working on that. We have just seen Seabased, which is one of the leading companies worldwide, and we hope we are also on the same or similar level. Our technology is on a point absorber similar. It's going up and down. You can also please see my videos online. But the main thing is buoyancy is going up and down and producing electricity. We found out that the difficulty here is that I think all of us manage to produce electricity out of ocean waves, but as it always is for technologies, the technical readiness to the market needs is difficult to achieve. So the market wants to have cheap electricity, and if you are in the development state, the electricity will be expensive. For the one reason, because you are not in mass production yet, and for the other reason, because you will have much more maintenance. So 3-4 years ago, we adapted our strategies to produce. To change to a multi-hybrid platform. And this is what we have here. We have a modular technology which allows already given solutions such as solar to bring this onto the ocean. So we have a platform that can take wave power, wind power and solar power depending on your location. And as we all know, solar power, for instance, is a quite cheap and reliable technology. So I'm always looking into two screens. So what did we recently do? We launched our first ocean hybrid platform equipped with solar. This is on the top right, you can see the theory. It's the smallest unit we can build. It's a modular system. It's equipped with 80 kilowatt peak of solar. And on the bottom left picture, you can see it's not opened officially to the world because it's a just recent launch. We are doing the first test, and in November we will officially launch this to the world with the marketing. But you have a preview with this small picture on the left bottom of this platform. You can see some people and the boat in the back. So we are talking of quite a reasonable size of this platform. And this is the smallest size we are producing here to produce energy. And this is actually at the moment only with solar. We will equip this next year with wind and wave as well. And we are testing this recently in Crete. Yeah? So that's our answer to low cost solutions for maritime engineering, to going to islands and small, big places. So to enable this, it's not only necessary, in our opinion, to have a platform and a mechanic solution, but we found that it's really difficult to have a smart grid on the ocean. So we developed our Modtronics, which is a modular power electronics, combining electrical motors to electrical controls of these motors to DC-DC converters, so more or less battery chargers and decharging. We have the supercap bank because ocean energy is really fluctuant in the electrical production. You want to have stable electricity. And last but not least, we have lithium-ion batteries. Here on this side, I have to tell you that already now we have a close relationship to Chinese companies. We are working in many fields already on the power electronics and especially also on the battery side. We're working with Chinese companies already. To give you an overview of what we are talking about. In the north of Germany, in Sweden, in the Northern Sea. Here it's the Hohe See wind park in the Northern Sea. It has a size of 42 square kilometers, so it's quite large. And you have these big wind turbines there. And when you take out just a square of these wind turbines, you could put up to 15 of our largest ocean hybrid platforms in between. So when I take our ocean hybrid platform and bring this to the whole ocean Hohe See wind park, I would increase the power density of this wind park by a factor of 10. And I would reduce the cost of the given wind park, which was built in 2017 actually. It was finished in 2017. They had a cost of 3.6 million euro per megawatt peak. And our technology today is at 1.7 million per megawatt peak. So I'm super much convinced that we soon meet the prices which are necessary to go into market. And we are still obviously on the small size. We are now ready to go into to larger scales with our platform. Obviously, it is strongly based, beside wave power, also on solar and wind, which allows us to reduce these prices so much already today. So I hope you understand this. It's going from big to small. So going back, the enabler was the mechanic platform and the mechatronics. So the smart grid. This is our own system. It's seawater proof. We have many small units of wind, wave, and solar all together. Depending on the site which is suitable, you might have situations where you don't have waves, but you have solar and wind. So we combine this. You will have other locations where you have really bad solar radiation. So we combine wind and wave, depending on the location. And the enabler for this is the smart power electronics, which is suitable to work in the ocean. And this is it's all seawater proofed. You can even run it below water, and many small parts together give the big system. So I think that's it. That's Sinn Power, and our idea, our vision is we want to bring smart, decentralized platforms to subsidize the today's super big and large power plants, which we know today. We want to subsidize and bring this technology onto the ocean where it doesn't harm people, where it's difficult to break it and stuff like that. That's our vision. Thank you really much, and hello to China. Looking forward.
Philipp, just a quick follow-up question. In your vision, if I understand correctly, do you think that there's tons of opportunities for you to work with existing wind farms in the ocean so that your modules, the floating solar modules, would actually compensate and make them better? And also, would you also envision of leveraging on their existing infrastructure so that the solar power being generated will also be using their existing transmission technology to transfer into the existing grid?
Yes and no. I mean, existing power plants typically have a power translation which is adapted to their needs. So if there's full capacity on the wind, the capacity of the existing cable, which is fairly expensive, is typically met. But you have all the legislation process to allow to go on these areas. Yeah, the boats are not allowed to go there. So if the if there's technically enough space to feed in much more energy, yes, absolutely. And obviously, you can always increase the existing electrical network to a larger power. So this is a matter, obviously, of technique, but the advantage is that you have these fields already, and especially for new developments of ocean energy fields, you can take this to account, and I think it fully makes sense to increase the energy density on a given space.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Okay, let me invite the last speaker, Henry Jeffrey, Chairman, Ocean Energy System at University of Edinburgh. We'd like you to first comment on some of the previous speakers' sharing on both technology, its implications, and business case, as well as could you share with us your view on what's a kind of a common approach he would recommend to encourage the development of ocean-based renewable energy. Professor Jeffrey.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you very much to the conference organisers for inviting us to share our views from the International Energy Agency at your conference this afternoon. As with the other speakers, both the Chinese speakers and the European speakers, it's clear that international collaboration and sharing of information so that we don't have duplication or replication of effort is extremely important for us to accelerate the development of this technology and take it from the development stage into the deployment stage, and making sure that there is a full market for this technology, both with regard to niche markets in islands and alternative applications, but also within the main utility scale market, where we need a clear market signal in order to make sure there is future visibility to investors for this technology. So what I'd like to do over the next 5 minutes or so is give an overview of the work that the International Energy Agency does to facilitate that international collaboration in order to accelerate the development of the sector. What I would say, I'll make clear, is that the collaboration programme in ocean energy covers wave, tide, salinity gradient and OTEC. It doesn't cover offshore wind because that's covered by another of the IEA's collaboration programmes, but we do have collaborations between those two programmes to make sure that we're aware of the opportunities for technology transfer for each sector. Could I move to the next slide, please? Okay, so now we are in the position that we now have significant deployments of ocean energy. Although small in scale with regard to conventional power, we're now at a stage that there is in excess of 50 gigawatt hours being delivered into the grid. So this shows that we're moving from not just single demonstration devices, but we're now moving into arrays of technology and the challenges associated with that. And one of the main challenges is having that clear market signal in order to take the technology forward. So the policy challenges then are ensuring that the policymakers around the world that have been very well organised in putting the technology push mechanisms in place in order to innovate the technology and develop the technology in order to reduce its cost and increase its reliability, are now moving to having the right balance of technology push and market pull to take the sector forward. Next slide, please. And so that technology evolution, as I mentioned, is happening both at the utility scale, but also in the alternative markets, such as islands that we have mentioned, both by the previous speaker and indeed by the Chinese speaker, speaking about the many, many islands that do not have power off China's coast. And so making sure that the technology that we're developing for island solutions is developing the same transferable skills and innovations that can transfer to the utility scale market is important. That these isn't a market in its own right. It's a market in its own right that also has advantages to the utility scale market. And so making sure that as we get that balance that I mentioned between technology push and market pull, in order to have that clear market signal for investors and OEMs to invest in the technology, while at the same time having significant technology push and innovation to make sure that we continue to increase the performance of these devices and reduce the cost, to ensure that in the future we have a very significant market share at an international level, I think is the challenge that policymakers have moving forward with this sector. Next slide, please. So the International Energy Agency currently has 24 member countries, and when I mention these 24 countries, what I would take from that is that there are 24 countries with a real political will and interest in both the development and the deployment of this technology. There is a diverse range of membership, both from the energy agencies and the government departments through to the utilities and the research providers. And what we find is that diverse range of membership is essential in order to make sure that we can design international collaboration tasks that will accelerate this sector in the most efficient and effective way. What I would say is that China is a very active member of this programme, bringing lots of skills, knowledge and expertise, both with regard to the technology that's being developed, also with regard to the policies that have been developed, with the first speaker speaking about the tariff that's been put in place. And that's very much a lesson learned for other countries around the world with regard to the advantages of what type of tariff, what level of tariff, in order to accelerate this technology most effectively. Next slide, please. So we run a number of initiatives throughout the IEA in order to make sure that there is this collaboration and sharing at an international level. I'll just take you through a few of these, to give you a feel and a sample of the work that we do. So the first one I will discuss is our task on environmental challenges. It's run on behalf of the IEA by the US Department of Energy. And this brings together all of the policymakers and the regulators and legislators in all of the member countries to make sure that there is sharing of lessons learned that have been gained from the environment and the deployments that have been made, to make sure that a regulator in China has the same information as a regulator in North America or in Europe. So we make sure that the planning and permissions process is as efficient and effective as it can be at an international level. And there are a number of reports. The State of the Science report has just come out, I think 6 weeks ago now. And so if you're interested in more information on that topic, then please engage with that report from the IEA website. Next slide, please. The topic of cost has been mentioned by all of the previous speakers, and so it's essential that we understand both what the cost is within one country and one technology, also understanding how that transfers at both a regional and international level. And so we run a study every number of years where we update what we feel is the international cost of energy, not just the cost from one particular company or one particular region, but what the international cost is for both the devices and their subsystems. And what we do is that we then take this knowledge and information and feed that into the IEA central model of market allocation at a global level, see in the future, if we are reducing our costs, what our proportion will be of the global energy mix of ocean energy, both at a regional and international level. This is a study that's currently being updated. It's being run by Tecnalia in Spain, and the results from this study will be out by the end of the year. Next slide, please. So in association, hopefully you've got the next slide on stage gate metrics. I can't see the screen from the view I have here, but this follows hand in hand with the cost work. And because international investment into this sector, both from public and private investors, is essential, then we want to make sure that there's an international understanding of when devices are at different stages of development to allow funders and financiers at an international level to understand the investment or innovation stage that a technology is at. So that will allow a technology from China to move to Europe or vice versa, so that the investor understands the stage that that technology is at, which then will ensure that the best technologies come to the front of the investment cycle in order to accelerate the production sector. This is a piece of work that's been led by the European Commission. China has been an active contributor to the task, and again, it will be launched by the end of this year. Next slide, please. This is my last slide on the activities that we have, and the last one is on job creation. And so, although all countries, as we've heard, are interested in the security of supply and the carbon saving that will come from this technology, all countries are also interested in the economic benefit and the jobs. And so what we've done is we've taken the model of a study that's been done in France, looking at the jobs that would happen in France from offshore renewables. And what we've done is expanded this to an international study. And so we are looking at both what the job creation will be at different levels of cost reduction, what the market size will be globally, and then what the associated jobs and economic benefit will be in different regions of the world associated with offshore renewables, which is an extremely valuable tool for policymakers to justify why they would invest in this technology as opposed to other alternatives for sustainable energy. Okay, next slide, please. So I mentioned all throughout my presentation that this is about sort of having large-scale deployments. So can I have the next slide, please, on the reports? I've mentioned predominantly about the utility scale market, and that is by far and away the largest market for this technology, but it's not the only market for this technology. So we understand in different regions of the world there are opportunities for both island, desalination, aquaculture, oil and gas. And so we just released 2 reports last month, both on the opportunity for ocean energy in islands and remote communities, and then a higher level report on the more diverse range of alternative markets going from aquaculture, oil and gas, desalination, and showing the opportunities there. So if you're interested to engage with that further, I'd ask you to engage with these reports. Okay, next slide, please, which is my final slide. And so overall, hopefully I've given you an overview of the work of the International Energy Agency and the importance of collaboration, both at a technological level and at a policy and governance level. All the information that I mentioned in this brief talk is covered in our annual report. You can see our 2019 one is there. We're currently finalising our overview of 2020, which will be available at the end of the year, which covers information on all the tasks and initiatives, which I've only covered a sample of, and all the country updates from our 24 countries showing the technology developments and the policy development and deployments in all of those countries. So thank you very much for your attention, and hopefully we can now have a good discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Professor Jeffrey. I'm conscious of the time. We're kind of running out of time. I'll just maybe ask the final question, both to the panel here and also online. 我想我还是回过来，可能跟这个您去沟通一下，就是刚才我们看到了不少的技术。
So just now we have introduced the technology of combining the exploitation of different types of energies. So do you think it's applicable, especially in China? So we have the platform for this type of testing, because I think in China we have a huge market. We may also have a very good platform for the testing. Do you think is there any potential for scaling up? So what do you think of the strength of this type of model or technologies? Just now I've listened to the introduction of the 3 speakers. Actually, I am familiar with the speakers.
Thank you for your attending our meeting. Nice to meet you here.
First of all, just now, the three speakers mentioned the combination of the three types of energies. And in China, actually, we also have this type of innovation and also the demonstration. In the 12th Five-Year Plan in Qingdao, we have combined the exploitation of photovoltaic, the wind power, and the wave power. We established the holistic electricity system for the local resident, so we can combine the wind power, wave power, and other type of energies, so that we can have a combination of the strength of different types of resources, so that we can stabilize the energy supply. And China is also working on that. From the special fund for this type of project, you can see it's promising. And the second, for the offshore energy application, our target is not only work on the current demand, we also make a new proposal, that is Marine Energy Plus. So the offshore energy can be applied in different types of scenario. The offshore energy plus desalination, offshore energy plus storage, or plus air conditioner, etc. So offshore energy application should not only target it on the combination of energy, it can also target at different scenarios. And another point that I would like to add is that offshore energy generation may experience different types of phases. And now maybe the cost is not competitive. But in islands, you can see that the tariff for the electricity powered by diesel is high, because diesel must be transferred to the land and with a lot of risks. So these constraints have made the electricity powered by fire or by diesel not that applicable in the island. Therefore, I think if we can utilize the offshore energy on the island, then we can scale up the application and continue to reduce the cost with the advancement of technologies. So I'm optimistic about the potential. I agree. If we are ready to make full use of the wind power or other types of energy, first of all, our target is to reduce the cost or the tariff of the electricity so that the company can be profitable. And the second, we must also take into account that when we are producing the electricity, we may also combine the agriculture. We can get more incentive. Economically speaking, first of all, in the whole supply chain or the production chain or the energy consumption, in every section, every step, we must reduce the cost. For example, the cost for per megawatt. For kilowatt is 1.6 yuan. Then we also need to reduce the cost in maintenance or other area, other section. So if we can reduce the cost in every step, then the total cost will be reduced more. So I do suggest the scholars have discussion on this, how we can save the cost in every step. Through the international collaboration, we can pool our wisdom for more proposals, for more solutions. We can also have the division of our labor. Then we can scale up our efforts. And the scale up effect can also be maximized. We're also encouraging the relevant parties to work on that. For example, we possess the same ocean. We would like to magnify or maximize their benefits. While on the other hand, the environmental enthusiasts may encourage the environmental protection. That's why we need the concerted effort from different parties.
Discussion. 那我自己的最大的这个收获，我觉得第一。
And my takeaway is that how we can use the already existing technologies or modules to help us to make full use of different types of energies. While on the other hand, we also reduce the cost. And I think it will be an important part of our solution to reach the target of carbon neutral by 2060. We must apply more technologies, multiple solutions to help us to hit the target. We also need the support of different scholars, and we must draw on their ideas and insights.
And 2 panelists offline. That's 我们鼓掌表示感谢。好，谢谢大家。
Thank you very much. Thank you for support.